Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, show number 529. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's at the end of some springtime. We're springtime, September. Wow. Hmm. Seasons and months all mixed up. It's first stepping into fall. Lots of transitional points for focuses on marketing. We're going now right into our fourth quarter. If you haven't already been doing what you were doing for fourth quarter, um, a little late to the game. You should already have a strategy up. And of course, with our kickoff being Halloween at the end of the following month coming up, we'll be in full swing and into 2026 before you know it. It always seems to accelerate. End of the year seems to accelerate a lot. Anyway, getting into our topic for today, I've had the pleasure of being in wonderful Orlando at the fantastic conference, but done and finished with that. Now back to this. In conversations about where we are in that time of year and in our conversations about the mix of business and so forth, it struck me odd that when discussing group sales, there's a definitive gap in the eagerness, excitement about it. It is a vestige of sale of our industry that is very tailored to a particular set of services. And what I mean by that is not everybody can be a good salesperson. People can sell depending upon what it is that they're selling, but to sell hotels, to sell a perishable product, to sell usable space and so forth requires a huge skill of listening, a huge skill of communicating, and more importantly, translating that into the terminology and functionality of operations and food and beverage and what have you, all of success. So when talking about marketing for group sales, you have this polarization that I've witnessed firsthand talking to people about group sales. People that have come up into group sales have a very specific way they approach how they do, the successful ones. This is what they do to have been successful, which all of us have those kind of histories to it. But when I ask them about how has AI affected their ability to market their group sales, I get a mixed bag. I get a complete aversion, and I get some wholehearted acceptance with the caveats that they don't like the lack of authenticity. So, our topic today, which is the lead into this point, is marketing group sales with AI. How does that look? What is that like? Now, as people begin to realize more and more, you can ask these questions of AI, and they make some fantastical hallucinogenic answers to this. I'm always amazed at how AI answers itself in a way referencing things that just don't exist. Hypothetical stuff like, well, you should be able to go over and look at trend analysis, sales trend analysis to determine which companies are about ready to purchase. Translate that into operations and you find a gap point that isn't really the way data is stacked and set. And the data points that you would need to use that kind of logic are very hard to define. So because of that, the best intent of asking AI what it should do for itself to be better at helping you for group sales is not the best way to go. But that being said, there are some good follow-up and follow-through things that exist for group sales that you should consider. First off, the obvious of what I heard most from group sales experts, good salespeople. That's what a group sales expert is. Good salespeople, successful group salespeople, is that they tend to use AI from a communications point of view. They tend to use it, if they're to use it at all, which has been kind of an interesting thing. It's not a widespread adoption into the sales department. If they're to use it at all, they have said that they tend to use it for outreach. They tend to use it for communications to declutter a lot of the interest that comes their way. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with sales, sales has it's not just sitting by a phone waiting for a call. It is not always being at cocktail receptions, hoping that the person you're talking to, you can talk through and begin to discuss their group sales needs. Those are all things, but group sales, genuine sales for hotels, require platforms, Cvent, and so forth, organizations, Helms Briscoe, and events, IMAX, and so forth, that require you to be in a collection of people competing for the opportunity to present your product along with everybody else that's trying to do the same as you to those people that are in the interest category. There's the hunters and there's the, oh, that'd be a bad analogy to say cattle. But you have those that are trying to sell something and those that are trying to purchase something. Buyers and sellers. That's much better. And usually the buyers far outnumber the sellers. And the sellers know that. Or the sellers are very large entities that represent a large collection of of businesses that are looking for business. And so that they have massive negotiating power. Well, none of that you want to trust to an AI well-intended personalization sending content. Those people do not respond to the hi, insert your name comment categories of emails. So the usage of AI in the category of outreach tends to be the collective general demand that comes along with your hotel. Businesses, usually newer or interim, or don't have internal structures, or do not have the consistent demand internally to be affiliated with associations that handle this or collaborate with them on this, and have to do their own outreach to discover what hotels might be available for their particular needs. Or there are companies that have grown and have needs where now all of a sudden they have a desire to bring everyone in to train, and they have to get room blocks for the people that they're bringing in for these training programs, or new hires, or there's new builds and they're coming into the market for construction and they need to bring in their teams. These types of things from larger organizations, they have people that facilitate the communication and outreach to the hotels in the market. They first go through and see if the hotels are represented collectively as a brand relationship. And then they go and look then at what is the most accommodating inventory to what they need in that market for their group needs. And that might be and has been where some of these outreaching communications go through. You know that a company, based on your local news, is coming to market because of recent contract signing, and they're going to be opening a distribution center. And so you look at the company and the source of the company and the collection of the information, if it hasn't already been provided by your Chamber of Commerce for you all to bid on, and you race to get ahead of your competitors to say that, you know, here's us and here's what we can offer you, and can we communicate about this? So again, not a lot of AI in there for that. AI can tend to be, and when talked through, there's a willingness to consider with good salespeople, AI in relationship to Smurf business. Social, maternal, religious, fraternal, the softer business of weddings, to put a better way of saying it, I guess. Social events, not corporate events, because that requires a lot of communication, and you're persistently dealing with an undereducated contact person, someone that doesn't do this regularly, usually. That is supporting and representing their organization to figure out what their options are. And so they have to go through a pretty good learning curve as to what to do and how to do this. And I say this from the bottom up. There are very well-run organizations that do very good and have a long history of doing this for themselves and are very skilled at negotiating what it is that they want. This usually goes into the associations and fraternal organizations and so forth, that they have a very strong sense of how they've done it, what they need, how they need it done, and are very specific about their requests and interests. And also, even when it comes to weddings and social events such as that, wedding planners that are very well organized, very curated as to what they know and should ask for, and organized and detail-centric and so forth. But those are fractional values compared to the larger, softer audience of people that know something and know well enough that they are the ones volunteering to do the work for their organization, but not necessarily do it for an occupation. This is where AI can kind of come in and help with some of your outreach programs, communications, being able to work with and collaborate on content that you can use to not only go out and connect with people that you got off of wedding venue events locally that people signed up for, and you get the list from to communicate with them and so forth. That's where these types of communications for AI are. But we've really only scratched the surface. That is not really marketing with AI. That's more of a service tool for communication and content. That is more of an AI thing in that sense. The value of AI for marketing for groups really is more about propensity and awareness and usability of targeting. And what I mean by that is that, as all good salespeople do, they research who it is that they're looking to do business with. They try to understand the demand and the needs of their guest in the current and future tense as to what may be a small interest now may be a tethered thread connection to a larger entity of interest. There are certain functionalities like associations and so forth that have to randomize or change their venues regularly to show non-preferential. There is optics associated with governmental group bookings that you don't want to look like it's too much of a festive event for a government function group event. Corporate events have their own decorums that they have to require. These are things that AI can help with in the research, development, and interest in history of things. A lot of the grind work associated with salespeople delving into and researching the companies that they're out to pursue or to collaborate or connect with. It's very time consuming. This is where AI can help a lot with determining those types of research materials that can be used to give you a better perspective of how to approach and connect with. Other things with AI is to help collaborate on the research of the historical value of the contracts that you're pursuing. What is their habits? What is their preferences? Where have they done things? To understand a profile development of a potential group sales connection that you then can enter into the dialogue with them predetermined to know that you're not going to say things that are of disinterest, but are of in the framework of what it is that they find as focus. I say this from a soft way because when you're talking about things like AI, it's about the phraseology of how you craft what it is you're inquiring about and being aware of it and smart enough to know, already having a precursor answer in your mind as to whether or not that information is given back to you from the AI, the generative model, is relevant and accurate or applicable. A lot of times it can come and sound great, but it has no validity to it. It sounds like that would be a great thing to do, but there's no reason why that would be accurate to do it that way. That's where a lot of the temperament of sales has been relatively cool when it comes to AI. Some things that I think can be used well when it comes to AI for group sales is awareness, growth of the market, looking for undiscovered connectabilities. And you say, well, how to do this? Well, a lot of it is having thoughtful questions, treating AI like a very knowledgeable coworker that has a depth of data behind them, but doesn't know what to do with it until they're asked of it. And that's a lot of what you're using AI with, is the ability to delve into what uniqueness might be available that wouldn't have been easily discerned had you not asked AI progressively through the relationships of with this and that. Does that show this? The A, B to Y principle, cause and effect, correlation, those kind of things. And I know I'm speaking in vague terms because a lot of this is a touch and feel. There is no great platform that goes and says, AI is going to find all these leads for you. There has been some, like, oh, well, AI can call you up. And yes, you can. You can have AI be your call, or your reach out. Be careful with that. People may appreciate the uniqueness of how well your AI works, but also diminish its value because you're having it work instead of you. Group sales business is a very relationship-based business. It is not about necessary function and form. I say that with the caveat that some good corporate businesses really prefer the straight up, they can determine what they want, identify what it is, get the cost of what it is, and make a decision without having to go through the sales dialogue to do that. That is a fractional amount of the audience. Most people prefer to understand and hear from a real person as to what they're doing or could be doing for them for their group requirement needs. Some of the other things from a more casual engagement perspective of this is that Group sales is always about making a large group of people, a large amount of people, feel special individually. A lot of times the salesperson can do this successfully with their contact, but they're not the ones that is actively in the halls of the hotel or resort making direct individual contact. That's your housekeeping team or your front desk team or your front of the house team in general. They're not the ones that are engaging with them in the room individually. That's your food and beverage team, your refresh teams and so forth, your housemen, banquet staff. So a lot of the disconnect of what was sold versus the actualization of the event itself is not often under the control of the salesperson. Now, if they're a good salesperson, actively engaged with their guests and with the operations team, then there is a bridge between what they know about the guest and how operations handles the guest. That's a good salesperson. That's a good banquet manager. That's a good F&B director. That's a good front desk manager. They're collaborating, housekeeping, and so forth. They're collaborating to have a sense that they're all one unified entities representing what was sold into the realization of how it was produced. AI can help in these ways, strangely enough, by creating pathways of communication. Not everyone likes face-to-face confrontation where they're talking about something that's negative or critical. Some people revel in it, but most people tend to shake from that. They leave their trolling to online, I guess. But when it comes to person face-to-face confrontations, they tend to not be as aggressive. They'll quietly accept and then complain later about something that they possibly had said something earlier about could have been corrected for. And that's where AI can help in the dialogue process. If you don't have an internal structure of communication for your guests that can give you feedback in real time, then AI could be a good solution for that, a chat bot or something. A lot of times frustration can build just from gap points in data. The attendees of the groups come in, but the details of the restaurant locations or exact time of the events and so forth, we've progressed in time through the technology to support groups. We've created mini microsites that had the event details on it with links that were applicable to the group and what have you. We've gone through that growth back in the day. And now we can create individual bots that can be collaborative in that sense as well. They can be helpful, set reminders, collaborate about events that are going on, places that are going, community engagement of the group itself where they can collaborate on wanting to meet or congregate somewhere, updates from the core team when it comes to changes in schedules and or details that they want the entire group to know. AI is very good at that spontaneous creative capability of doing that and putting all the information related to the group in a designated data set that it would be using for that. Also creating an interactive capability to be supportive of your operations team, in which maybe not your housekeeper knows where every great restaurant is in a 1 mile radius of your property. And the guest asking, I feel like, well, I still haven't got an answer about where to go to eat tonight. The AI can generate an interaction that can be very helpful with that because it's just not a list of restaurants that then the user has to continue to go and look and discover and see if any of them are interesting or what have you. But literally, it could be an interaction based on the type of food you want, the time of day it is, or whatever, on and on and on. You get the point. We've talked about those in AI generations before. So the idea that AI can be a supportive aspect of group engagement is good, but it's not getting to what AI sales marketing for group sales can be. A lot of times we can't see the forest for the trees as salespeople. What makes great salespeople's success also puts blinders or guides on them to not seeing outside of what they're already good at. They were successful in what they've done. They've been able to repeat that success by repeating what they've done. And so they keep on that path. And it is entrenchable in the sense that salespeople can indeed see it in a very linear way, persistently. This is what I've done. This is what I've always done. This is how I am. This is how I talk. This is how I engage. This is my modalities. This is my research. This is my process. And it has proven successful for them, but it also at times can be limiting to them because it doesn't allow them to see other ways that things could get done that they could be equally good at and maybe even perhaps better at than what they're currently doing simply because they haven't done it successfully yet before. And so for that reason, AI is a great tool for your sales team when it comes to marketing, because it allows you to expand your awareness of other components to your sales process that you may not know. I say this from a couple of caveats. One, salespeople never get old. They just never change their ways. They will do what they do the way they've done it, and they do that over their whole life. That being said, there is a frustration level as older sales teams members deal with more youthful group representatives. Vernacular, preferences of communication, preferences of type of communication, clarity, brevity, open communication, expectations. These create tension points for salespeople between them and the perspective, and then potentially representative of the group event that they have booked. They find it challenging to find a bridge between what they know they can offer versus the guest's expectations of what they need. That's the power of sales, is to create that bridge, to make that opportunity happen. And it can also be its most limiting factor if you're out of sync with how people representing now handle their way of doing work. There is a growing group of people that are very similar to well-established corporate travel planners that they just want to get to the information. They want to select what it is that they want, confirm availability, XYZ, details, specificities that they know in their particular way of what they are looking for and need, and be done with it. Sign and seal the deal, and not have to go through the process, the sales process, to do so. And that is also now turning into a generational thing, where it's not just some people just are good and that's all, they don't need to be going through the banter. Some people just, that's their way of getting it done. And that tends to land on certain age categories of people that are not responsible for group activities. The ability to open those channels, the ability to communicate with those channels, is one thing. We've talked about that. The other is, how do you communicate with them on channels that are not as traditionally based communication channels for group sales? You're dealing with the social media channels now. You're dealing with avenues of interest where people enclave their operations. They literally go out and look and search for things to be as prepared for what they are wanting to ask for as they are willing to be told what it is that are available. By the time that some of these people get to the doorstep of a salesperson for a particular property, they're probably as well versed about the property's potential as the salesperson is in presenting it. And so all they want to do is expedite the idea of confirmation and affirmation to the contract. Now, you might think that's the salesperson's dream. It isn't, because if your data isn't correct, if the impression of what you're doing isn't right, and of course, if your availabilities aren't marked and measured, because maybe they're considering that they want more of an inventory type than you have, because they may not know exactly the full count of your suites or your kings or what have you. These variations create and break relationships all the time, or contracts all the time. Then this is the salesperson's responsibility of clarification of the process. But if you don't know how to reach these people to make sure that they're aware of what and who you are in a general marketing sense, then regardless of your affinities and relationships with large group sales organizations and your brand connectivities, or what if you are branded, you're still an individual hotel trying to fill rooms, and you're still an individual hotel trying to fill meeting space. The brand will only do so much to sell what you are as a part of its program. Your local associations, CVBs, DDCs, and so forth, who rep your destination, will only do so much because they're carrying everybody with them to these events. It's up to you to make the designation of difference between what you're offering versus what your competitor might be offering. And AI can help in understanding whom you're talking to better. It can understand more of what you should be talking about better. And this goes in correlation to whom you're talking to with your inventory type. Corporate travelers, as all good salespeople know, tend to have preferences of certain amenities, distances to transportation, connectivity, resources like restaurants, and of course, proximity to things, meeting space convenience, so forth. Smurf, something totally different. The scalability of the event themselves, the diversity that you can provide for the event, the colors and the combinations, the centerpieces, and so forth. The range of affordability of the rooms for those that are attending the wedding, if that's what it is around the Smurf business. All these have these unique features that the salesperson has to translate, given the chance and opportunity, or more specifically, making the chance and the opportunity to a potential guest that represents group sales. So AI is a softer tool for group sales marketing than it is for transient, obviously. But it has similar functionalities that are rooted into what we do for SEO, what we do for SEM. But what you need to begin to understand is, how are people using AI on the user side to discover you? Because the traditional channels of discovery of group sales, I wouldn't say are under attack. That sounds very dramatic. But they're under pressure to change. That change might diminish some of the more traditional channel exposures. It might actually enhance some as well, because of the solidification of being a centralized source of value. I think of certain conferences that tailor to certain things like an IMAX or something, where you want that exposure of contrast to everybody else, because you're talking about large scale businesses, incentive programs, and so forth. For those who've never been to IMAX, it's quite a thing. But when it comes to group sales and knowing how you're found, you need to go through your content and ensure that it is the most reflective accuracy of what you're actually able to offer than you probably have ever had to have before. Because most of what we've ever had to have before, we've tended to flower it with our typical marketing terminology about antique wood decorums or grand palisade or variations to that effect. And that is not what people are looking for in perspective. They don't use the terms. We're used to keyword terms being a functionality of discovery. AI is about getting a conclusive answer to a query. That query from a group contractor might be about nuances to your meeting space connectivity to rooms. They want the room stacked straight above. They want elevator access only. They don't want to walk through a campus to get to a conference center. You need to be able to define yourself that as AI, and I'd say this is a cute, fun exercise. Treat it in AI just as an exercise. Don't take it at face value for what it results as, because this is not a progressive prompting discussion. But go in and say that you're who you are, a group meeting planner, so forth, for such and such organization, looking for, and then describe what you think is the best way that you would say, elevator pitch wise, as to why your hotel product for that type of business would be well suited. It's wonderful. The walkways, the breezeways are bright and light. The gathering area is high ceilinged and spacious. The rooms collectively can be one large entity for major sessions, and can be quickly divided into moderate sessions with small breakout rooms, whatever way you describe it. And see, and then ask if there's any hotels in your market that have that. See how you show up. And ask ways that people have asked you about your meeting space. Well, does it have XYZ? Does it have ABC? Does it have this? And see, by asking what hotels in your area provide this with these types of things, whether you show up. And then ask it, why didn't your hotel show up? And it will come back saying it didn't discover any information about that. It didn't discover that that was a feature of yours. It didn't discover that you had that. That's a great starting point to go, we should probably expand our content to be more in sync with how we present our product on the classifications of what the product is interesting in for, whether it's Corp or Smurf or whatever. Let's make sure that our content is as close to what we say as salespeople to the type of person we're talking to as is for our site to be discovered by. It's a small gap fill. There's no format to this. There's no sheet that fills in that says, here, these are the details. You can create a SWOT report. You can look at and see how, and literally look, go and take AI and say, should I consider a competitor's hotel for this type of meeting space with this type of company? What are the benefits, the pros and cons of doing that? And let AI come back with whatever it comes up with. Keeping in mind, AI will maybe throw in some hallucinogenic stuff in there to make stuff up. Remember, it does that. Okay. But you know your comp set well enough to know whether that's a valid aspect of their property or not. And see how AI, when asked specifically what you think she should or should not be shown up for, what does AI say about it? And just don't use one, use several. Go to Gemini, go to ChatGPT, go to Perplexity, go to Cloud, whatever. Llama, all the rest of them, and just ask the same types of questions and see if there's a consistency pattern to how both are represented and what is omitted. And realize that this is your way of beginning to tailor what your hotel is seen as more and more people use the discovery process of long language models and GEO. Because it is happening. Now, group sales, it's hard to say how many people are just getting on an AI and saying, hey, I'm looking for a hotel for a group of 50 people or 100 people for 3 days in August that has one large meeting space for all of them where we can have dinner and 2 breakout rooms for 50 people or less. Okay, see what it says, comes back to it for your market. Those people are probably going to just throw a dartboard up and do that initially just to get a start, a reference point. As like with any time you start traveling, making travel plans for, especially those uninitiated, you start from somewhere. The journey of 1,000 steps starts with the first step, that kind of thing. How people begin to approach your market is all about showing up for the things that are general interest first, things that in that sense. And then you go over there to the strategies of who would be asking for that. And then you would try to define who those are. I'm talking about capturing the people that are not into the structured format of the conferences or the large C event distributions, where a lot of times you have no name, no face, nothing information about them. They're only asking about capacity requirements, and you have no clear path as to whom you're talking about to know how to tailor that experience in the reply. And you have to be as creative and thoughtful as possible to a nameless, faceless person. AI can help with sometimes the content creative, but don't rely on it for its own as the only source to do that. But the other is maybe you can do some research as to why or how would somebody be asking for that, and you might be able to discover who that company is. AI can be helpful in that research development phase. We all try to do that. It's like try to peek beyond the curtain. It's like, okay, I don't know who this entity is, but based on what they're asking about, is there a way for maybe me to figure it out so that I can be good about my reply to the RFP? We do it all the time. AI can help with that. So these are some aspects of how AI can do all that. Anyways, it is a soft but growing subject as the marketing group sales with AI. It is a very selective usage capability, and you're dealing with a bit of resistance from old school as to this is what I do successfully this way. AI doesn't fit into that quite yet, to how can I use AI to not only do good at how I've been doing it, but to explore new opportunities of how I might be able to expand my service skills. And that's a good value to AI as well. So with that, always, thank you so much for watching me live. And if you watch us on the rerun, which we do for our, we're in 209 countries on the Hospitality Channel. So you can catch us at 11:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, Sydney time for our APAC friends, 11:30 a.m. Wednesday morning, London time for our EU friends and in Mideast friends. To freecast on the show as well. I did get a feedback that to maybe take the show, for those that don't have the opportunity to listen to the entire duration of it, or to watch it for the entire duration of it, is to do a highlight pinpoint. And I was thinking about that AI tool in that sense, where to go over and say, okay, let's see whether that might be helpful for those to get the highlights out of what we're trying to project as the main talking points of our show, for those that have even lesser time to be able to spend time watching and listening to us. So I'm going to consider that as well. Catch us on reruns, hospitalitychannel.tv, our hospitality radio station, hospitalityradio.com. And of course, our TV channel will always host our show live all the time at Hospitality Channel. It's on Apple iOS, Google Play. It's on your smart TVs, Roku, Google, Amazon, Apple. All of them have the Hospitality Channel. Simply go look for it. The show's always on the free side. And if you're part of our hospitality marketing rabble of people that do this every day, you can join our Hospitality Marketing Club at hospitalitymarketing.club. So with that, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.